Last month, some major shipping companies decided to stop sailing through the Red Sea because of a bunch of drone and missile attacks by a group called the Houthis. They're a militia from Yemen and they've got support from Iran. This is a big deal because it could mess with oil prices. Now, Western navies are getting more involved in the area, and there's even talk about the US stepping in directly against the Houthi bases in Yemen. In this video, we're going to break down why the Red Sea is super important in global politics, why the Houthis are going after ships, and what might happen next. Stick around to get the lowdown on this intense situation. Alright, let's dive into the nitty-gritty of this situation by understanding why the Red Sea, and specifically the Bab al-Mandab Strait, are major players in the global shipping game. Simply put, there are two key reasons. First off, it's the main path for trade between Europe and East Asia, involving countries like Japan, China and Vietnam. This route sees a whopping 30% of all global container traffic, making it a crucial lifeline for international trade. Plus, the Bab al-Mandab Strait is not just any trade route, it's a vital passage for oil. This waterway links oil-producing nations around the Persian Gulf, such as Saudi Arabia, Iraq and Iran, to oil-consuming countries in Europe. A glance at the map of global maritime oil exports reveals that approximately 5 million barrels of oil, making up roughly 10% of the world's seaborne oil, pass through this strait every single day. But since Putin's moves in Ukraine shook up the energy landscape, the Bab al-Mandab has become even more critical. It now serves as a significant route for liquefied natural gas, particularly from places like Qatar, a major LNG exporter. Countries like Italy, France and the Netherlands have recently inked multi-decade LNG contracts with Qatar, aiming to fill the gap left by the disruptions in Russian gas supplies post-Ukraine. In simple terms, this strait is not just important, it's getting even more crucial for global energy trade. Now let's talk about recent events. In response to Israel's invasion of Gaza in October, the Houthis, a Shia Islamist group, started targeting trade ships passing through the strait. Keep in mind that these attacks directly impact Europe, a region heavily dependent on this route for its energy needs. And as we've seen over the past couple of years, any disruptions to energy supplies can hit Europe's economy pretty hard. The Houthis engaged in a civil war against Saudi Arabia, and the internationally recognized Yemeni government since 2015 have garnered support from Iran. Over the years, they have managed to gain control over a substantial portion of northwestern Yemen, including the capital, Sana'a. This strategic positioning brings the Bab al-Mandab within their firing range. Due to their ties with Iran, the Houthis hold strong anti-Israel sentiments, and in October they officially declared war on Israel. Despite firing missiles towards the Israeli port of Eilat, most of which were intercepted, they shifted their focus in November. Recognizing their limited ability to directly harm Israel, the Houthis redirected their attacks towards ships navigating through the Bab al-Mandab Strait and the Red Sea. Claiming solidarity with Palestine, they justified targeting ships involved in trade with Israel. However, the majority of the attacked vessels were neither heading to Israel nor owned by Israelis. French, Norwegian and even Chinese ships found themselves under fire, with many destined for Europe rather than Israel. The consequences of these attacks became evident in early December when all 5 major shipping companies announced their decision to cease sailing through the Red Sea. This decision, while beneficial for shipping companies, spelled trouble for the global economy, particularly Europe. Ships bound for Europe now have to take a longer route around Africa, adding around 3,000 nautical miles to their journey. This change in shipping routes also poses economic challenges for Egypt, as fewer ships passing through the Suez Canal mean reduced transit fees, exacerbating Egypt's ongoing economic crisis. In response to these developments, US and UK Navy vessels took a more active role in the Red Sea over the weekend, intercepting 15 Houthi drones on Saturday alone. The question arises, why are the Houthis engaging in such actions when Israeli ships are not their primary targets, considering that only about 5% of Israel's trade passes through the Red Sea? One plausible explanation is that the Houthis may be attempting to enhance their domestic image. Facing economic challenges with a depreciating currency and irregular payment of public sector salaries since 2016, the Houthis could be using these attacks to portray themselves as the defenders of the Arab people. By doing so, they may seek to improve their standing not only among the Yemeni public, but also within the wider Arab community, where discontent with leaders' reluctance to retaliate against Israel has been observed. Additionally, there is a possibility that the Yemenis are intentionally trying to incite an international escalation by drawing Western navies into the conflict. If this is indeed the case, a crucial question arises. Are they acting under the direction of Iran? Iran and its proxies have maintained a relatively low profile, with both Iran and Hezbollah emphasizing their lack of prior knowledge about the October 7th attacks. While the Houthis are somewhat more independent than Hezbollah, they may have chosen to take such actions on their own accord. Alternatively, Iran could have strategically decided that now is an opportune time to confront Israel, presenting a worrisome scenario for various reasons. Considering the potential trajectory, there are parallels with the tanker conflicts in the Persian Gulf during the 1980s, known as the so-called tanker wars. Amid the Iran-Iraq war, Iraq targeted container ships exporting Iranian oil, prompting Iran to retaliate against ships leaving Kuwait and Saudi Arabia, which were supporting Iraq. Fearing the impact on oil prices, the US Navy began escorting ships in the region. However, in 1987, an Iraqi aircraft mistakenly shot down the USS Stark, resulting in the tragic loss of 37 US Navy personnel. This incident highlights the risks of unintentional escalation. Even if the Houthis refrain from directly targeting the US Navy, an inability to persuade commercial tankers to resume operations in the Red Sea may compel Western countries to consider more drastic measures. Discussions have already emerged about the US taking direct action against Houthi bases in Yemen, a move that not only poses a risk of escalation with Iran, but also jeopardizes the ongoing peace talks between Saudi Arabia and the Houthis. The situation is delicately poised, and the potential for unintended consequences underscores the complexity of the geopolitical landscape. In wrapping things up, the rising tensions involving the Houthis, the Red Sea, and international shipping routes highlight the tricky nature of political moves in the Middle East. The Houthis switched from going after Israel to attacking commercial ships in the al-Mandab Strait and the Red Sea, not only messed with global trade, but also brought up some big geopolitical questions. The whole deal with the Houthis, whether they're doing this on their own or someone else is pulling the strings, maybe Iran, adds a bunch of twists to the story. The Houthis attacking ships has got people wondering why and who is really behind it. Even though Iran and their friends like Hezbollah are saying they didn't know about it beforehand, figuring out who's calling the shots is a bit of a puzzle. Checking out past events like the tanker wars back in the 1980s shows that messing with ships in key waterways can lead to some serious problems. The US Navy getting more involved might sound like a good plan, but it comes with risks, especially if things go wrong and there's accidental fighting. Looking into what might happen next, it's kind of up in the air. If ships keep steering clear of the Red Sea because of safety worries, countries like the US might feel pushed to step things up. There's talk about the US jumping into the mix directly against the Houthis in Yemen, but that could stir up trouble with Iran and mess with the ongoing peace talks between Saudi Arabia and the Houthis. The situation is still up in the air, and how it all unfolds will depend on how countries work together to keep things stable in this ever-changing global scene. That's it for today, and now we invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. Do subscribe to the channel if you like our content. We will catch you in the next one.